Right. Okay, I'm going to do a little introduction for everybody. So welcome everybody. I'm Helen from LIANZA, and we're really thrilled that Pamela Jones and Catherine Bosworth can be with us today, and they're going to share how they've used a virtual platform for their programs, events and school visits. So Pamela's a district children's and young adult librarian for South Taranaki Libraries. And Catherine is branch librarian of Pātea and Waverley Library Plus. So they've both been involved in working with book clubs. I'm actually going to just keep it to that. I think it's probably enough from me. And I'm going to hand over to Pam and Catherine, and at the end we're going to have a Q&A. So if you've got any questions, put them in the chat, and I will read them out at the end. So until then, goodbye from me.
Thanks, Helen.
Thanks, Helen. So hi everybody, I'm Catherine, and I'm just going to get us all started with just learning a few really simple Zoom tools. So if I could just get everybody to change their name by clicking on the 3 dots at the top of our video. So you want to click on those and then go to rename, and if you could just put your name out, first name's fine, and the library where you've come from today or what you're representing, as we'd love to see the widespread of libraries here. So if you could all do that now, that would be great. Give you just a minute to do that. Okay, so whilst you're all doing that, I see some have changed and some are still doing that. So if you could also...
We've lost you, Catherine.
Yes. Yeah. It's okay.
Have you lost your sound?
No.
There you go, you're okay now.
Okay, I was muted. It said I was muted by the host. Oh well. So if we could all just have a practice of muting and unmuting ourselves, that would be great. So down in the bottom where the mute button is, if you just click on that to unmute yourself and then click on it again to mute yourself again, that would be great. And then across the bottom bar by the mute button, you've got a little chat. So that's where we'll get you to write your questions for us to all answer at the very end, like Helen said at the start. And then a little bit further over, we have a reactions button. So if you could click on that and give us all a big thumbs up, that would be great. And then if you could give us an applaud, that would be awesome. So those are the reactions. And if there's anything that you hear throughout the session, you're welcome to use those to cheer us on. We'd appreciate it. And up the top, the very top, it's by the minimize and the closing button. Don't click that, but it's just a little bit further down. It's called speaker view. So if you click on that and then you change it to the gallery view, it just changes the view that you'll see. We will be sharing our screen at some point, but that's just a good tip to know so that you can see who's talking and who's, see all of your beautiful faces. So we are going to answer all the questions, like Helen said, at the very end. So just keep track of what you want to ask us and any comments. We might cover it throughout our presentation, but we'd love to hear all your questions at the end. Right, so Pam, would you like to talk about how we came up with doing our Zoom book clubs?
Sure. Thanks, Catherine. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session. So back when lockdown hit, our manager requested staff to look at the services that we provide in the libraries and see what we could possibly offer during lockdown. My area of course is events and programming, so I looked to see if it would be possible to move any of those events, transition them from the physical space to the digital space. That was 4 weeks ago. We thought that an easy transition would be our book clubs, so we decided to have a go at that, and we're reasonably pleased with how it's pulled together. Just recently, we've been inundated with lots of requests from librarians across the country to join our book clubs to see how we run them, and actually really inundated. Initially, we let 1 or 2 people come on in and join us and see what we were doing. It was the early days, but then we got so swamped by people coming in, and I'm sure there are some of you here today, we ended up having to say no, because we would have had more adults at the book club than we did children. And as you didn't fit the 5 to 12-year-old age group we were meeting, we thought it was better to not let you in. Catherine, however, came up with this idea and said, how about we just do something for the adults to show them what we're doing? So that's how it came about. We don't profess to know it all. We just decided to give it a go, and we've worked our way through the hiccups, and hopefully today we're going to help you avoid some of the mistakes that we made.
Cool.
We move on through. What's our why? So book club, as you know, they're live events, and live events are about getting people to show up and experience something. So we took the same approach with our digital book clubs. We took the time up front to map out our vision and our purpose, just like we would normally for our ordinary book clubs. Given we were introducing this whole new version, we asked ourselves a couple of questions. We asked, what was the journey that we wanted to take the kids on? And what did we want to leave them with when book club was over? So let's just step back a bit to that time when lockdown hit. Like everybody, we worked out, or we wanted to work out, how to be there for our customers even though the library was closed. So our manager took the direct approach and asked our staff from our 7 libraries if they would sit on the phone, ring our customers and find out what they wanted from us. We learned lots, as you can imagine, but for today's purpose, we're going to focus on the kids. We learned that the kids were missing staff, which was really lovely for a lot of the staff to hear. We also heard that they were missing our regular events, things like our book clubs and our story times. At the time of this discussion, when we were thinking about going digital, one of our staff, who is an introvert, said that she wasn't interested in participating in anything that was a session like we have here today. She felt as though that was, it felt as though she would be inviting 100 people into her living room. And it was something she couldn't cope with. It horrified her, actually. But for me, as an extrovert, it actually had the opposite effect. I got really excited when I heard her say that. The idea of taking our book clubs into children's bubbles and into their homes sounded awesome to me. And how cool if we could take someone exciting in with us. So we've all heard the stories about how meeting an author has given a child a life shift or a transformation. So that became our aim. Give the kids the opportunity to have an author in their living room, chatting with them and getting to know them. So we set out to do that. We decided to concentrate on New Zealand authors. As you know, lockdown has meant the cancellation of lots of events and school visits, book launches, author chats around the country. One author I spoke to had all her events cancelled until Christmas. And then another author just this week mentioned that he'd had 85 school visits cancelled in the last, for the next 4 months. So it's severely impacted their incomes. By inviting authors into our book clubs, we could see an opportunity to help them at the same time. So we had our journey. Now what we were looking at was what we could leave them with. We wanted to keep them focused on the library while away from us. So we added in a carrot into the book club in the way of a prize. But Catherine's going to talk about that later. We didn't set a target of how many kids we wanted to attend. And can I say, I don't think you need 50 kids for it to be successful. At our first event, we had 1 child turn up. And that still remains one of our most successful events. Wouldn't that be right, Catherine, do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Young Eva was an unusual girl with no friends, and that was her admission during book club, a real misfit at school. We'd chosen Kyle Newburn as our first author, mainly because we knew Kyle well. We've really done a lot of work with her and knew Kyle's way of chatting with kids, which we thought would be really good for the first session. So Eva became really excited when she recognised the books that Kyle had written, and she just loved the one-on-one attention. She chatted happily with Kyle, and Kyle really adapted well to the situation of one child. The interesting thing was the next day, Eva's mother rang her local librarian, who happened to be Liz at Eltham Libraries, and said what an impact the session had had on Eva and how grateful they were as her parents for just what it had done for her at book club. So that was really exciting to hear. So even one child, we're really strong on that if one person turns up at our event and it makes a difference in their lives, then we've done our job. So backtracking just a little bit more, once we knew our why, we needed to consider the format, the when, where, how, and who. Our teens appeared savvy with the online world and able to manoeuvre and find what they needed. So we left them to get on with it for now. It was our younger kids who appeared to need help. We focused on 2 age groups, 5 to 8 and 9 to 12. And we picked those age groups because we thought it allowed us to divide a little bit between picture books and the slightly older chapter books. We weren't dogmatic, though, about the age grouping. We were aware that there would be some overlap, particularly in that middle bit. But in fact, whole families often join in. There'll be 3 or 4 children sitting in the session at one time. And so therefore, we ended up with a range of kids at each book club. But that didn't really bother us. The idea of setting the age groups for us was so that the kids knew what they were coming into. If they chose to join the picture book section, then they were coming in knowing that they were looking at picture books and it was going to be pitched at that level. And we're finding kids are repeatedly coming back happy to sit in both levels. Once we'd worked that out, the next step for us was to pick a time and day and stick to it, much like you do with a regular book club. But then how to reach enough people to participate was our next challenge. As you'll know, with any event, you need to cast a wide net of attendees. If we wanted 30 or 40 kids to attend, then we needed to reach hundreds to let them know that the event was on. And we were doing all this all from our living rooms, just like we are today. We're a bunch of small libraries. We don't have dedicated library marketing or IT staff, do we, Catherine?
No.
Catherine, do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So we don't have, like Pam said, dedicated library marketing or IT staff. So it was up to each local library staff member to help with getting the word out. I'm not sure about you guys, but we've felt a little bit busier in lockdown than we do in our normal everyday library lives. So with this in mind, we created a standard poster that we could use over and over with just a few small changes. And we used multiple methods to share on all our social platforms. We created compelling event invitations on our Facebook page, and we teased our audience with a carrot. So we offered a prize each week for attending, only to one child at a time. We used event strategies like ensuring they heard about it 3 times before the event actually took place, and staff shared it to their community Facebook pages and personal pages, and we used our Twitter and Instagram to promote the events. So schools also sent it out in their newsletters. We have a really good relationship with our schools, so that was really helpful. And librarians from around the country shared it through the School Libs listserv, and of course we also asked LIANZA if they could share it as well. We put it on our website and asked council if they could highlight it with their media announcements, and we created interactions so that people commented and shared it to friends, and gradually we started to see a wave of excitement with each new session.
So the software. We then needed to pick our platform. The easier, the better. We didn't look too far, to be honest. Everywhere we turned, we heard about Zoom, so we went straight there. Mostly because people already knew it. For many, we weren't introducing something new. Even my 3-year-old grandson was having Zoom mat times each morning with our local kindy. So we figured parents were getting on board a bit, wouldn't have too much difficulty with it, and basically the foundations were mostly in place for us. Zoom would give us the bonus of the easy tiling on the screen, as you saw when you were coming in, and for most of you that are using it. So we could see everyone present, and the kids could share things from their bubbles while we could see them and interact with them. And you know, we got to see kittens and puppies. We got to see new babies in homes. We met parents who came on and sideways came over the screen to have a chat with us. Our first concern, though, we felt we needed an hour book club, and at that time the free Zoom platform ended after 40 minutes. A bit of research revealed that by purchasing the paid platform at $15 a month, we got longer sessions. We could have more people attend. A waiting room could be set up so that we could welcome the author and get set up before the kids arrived. And we found that that was really important because our kids were arriving at 2:30 for a 3 o'clock book club, just like some of them do in the libraries. One of the big bonuses was it gave us a free Zoom training session on how to run successful Zoom events. And that was beneficial for me. I hadn't gone near Zoom at all at that stage. And so that was a real bonus having that. And it gave us greater security. Ugly Zoom bombing was becoming a real threat. Would you say that, Helen? We heard that through LIANZA quite a bit.
Yes, yeah, that's right. We've definitely had a few issues ourselves. Luckily, nobody so far.
We needed to avoid that at all costs. So with the security, in the first instance, we were quite naive, I would say. Would you agree, Catherine?
Yeah, definitely.
We really hadn't experienced it, hadn't at that stage heard much about it. It hadn't come up all over the government mentioning it or councils mentioning it at that stage, as far as we knew. And so we remained quite naive. We just put our link to our book club up on our events page, ready for when book club was going to start. And it was there for everybody to get hold of. We didn't think it was too much of a problem. We were just a little council doing book clubs for kids. It wasn't going to be much of an issue, we didn't think. However, by then, I think we had heard from Anna in LIANZA, and at 2 of their sessions, they had had Zoom bombing happen to them, and Anna said that they were pretty ugly. She hasn't said any more than that, just that they were ugly, but said that she thought we needed to consider it. So with the free training sessions, they talked about the security issue, and we learned that by keeping the password in. I don't know how much any of you know. I don't know, Catherine, if we can see from the audience how much they know about the security on Zoom.
Everybody give us a thumbs up if you know about it.
So at the moment, I can't see anyone. So here we go. So we're seeing 1 or 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just go into the security then a little bit more. So I didn't know, but you always get, when you get an invite, you get a password. But what I noticed was, for the couple of times that I got an invite, I didn't need to use the password to go in. So I thought, why do we need to have the password? What I've since learned at the training was that Zoom bombers don't just get in using the link. What they do is they sit at their keyboard and they punch in letters and numbers until something corresponds with a Zoom event that's taking place, and then they can get in that way. But But with a password, they can't do that. If you put a password onto your Zoom meeting, they have to have the password to get in. So that was vital for me to learn that. So I made sure that I always put a password then onto our meetings. And then the other thing was that to make it extra secure, not to put your Zoom link out in public. So then we decided to change that, and instead on our posters we started to ask people to email us. And I think Catherine goes into that a bit more. We created the link, and then people had to come in and email us to get the link. But then that concerned us a little bit, because that meant that they had to be really proactive. And you'll know from some of our events, you really have to go out and target people to get them back into you. How are we going, Catherine? Catherine or Helen? Do you think we're doing all right here?
Doing great. Our special guest hasn't arrived yet.
Okay, thank you. So Catherine, do you want to take it from here?
Shall we move into the next slide then, Pam?
Yes, let's carry on.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry, I thought that was Catherine's. It's mine. So with the free training, one of the other things that it gave us was that it highlighted the need for 2 people to run the Zoom session. We needed a front person, the host, and we needed an admin person behind the scenes. Now, Catherine and I were already working together. For the last 10 years, we've worked together quite closely on a lot of our events and programs. And so it was quite natural for the 2 of us to link in together to run these. We think quite similarly. We're big picture people, but Catherine and I also differ quite drastically, I guess, in that Catherine's far more detail oriented than me. I have no desire to get into details, and Catherine loves it. So for me, that meant that we work together as a team quite well. Catherine often has my back doing like one of those ducks paddling her feet underneath the water frantically to keep up with my changes and things that I do. I tend to zip all over the place. And so she was a natural to come in and work on the background. We're also now training a brand new staff member that we have, who is turning out to be quite techie and quite savvy with events and that. And she's our backup now for if one of us isn't available. Do you want to go from there, Catherine?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Pam. So as Pam said, we have an admin person, and that's normally me. So as an admin person, my responsibility is to share the screen. So I'm doing what I'm doing right now. You can see the PowerPoint, and that's just running in the background. So it's really important to just make sure you're staying alert, otherwise you miss a slide and the author continues talking and the kids aren't seeing what they're meant to be seeing. So it's just a bit like in the library, in the physical library, in the physical space, when we have an author and they're standing at the front of the room talking to the kids, and you might have a projector and the laptop set up and you're clicking through the slides as they say go. So it's just the same, nothing changes there. The other job of an admin person is that they need to admit the waiting room. So at the moment, Helen's doing that for us, which is great. It saves us having to worry about that task today. But normally I'd just be sitting there going through the waiting room, making sure that anybody that comes in a little bit late is coming in and is let in, because we have it so that they can't just waltz on in. And we also lock the session. So we came up with a decision after we heard all about the Zoom bombing that we would be locking sessions after about 10 minutes. And this allows kids enough time to get in, have their technical issues, and go out, go in, go out, go in like they usually do. But it also means that once it's locked and they can't get back in if they fall out or something. But it also stops other people, unwanted guests, coming in. Another job that we do is record the session. So I noticed that LIANZA is recording now, but when we record our sessions, we do it slightly different. We just record the author talking. So we don't record the whole session, and we record it to the cloud, not the computer, because when you record it to the cloud, you're able to cut all 3 segments out. So you can take just the audio, you can take the audio and the video, or you can take just the text. You don't have to have everything. So we found that was really helpful, and we're able to put that up on our website. Haven't yet done that because we're still learning how to do all that, but yeah, it's a work in progress, that part of it. But the reason we only record the actual author talking is because in our very first session, when we had just the one girl, Eva, she talked a lot about some really personal issues and challenges she faces on a daily at school, and we just felt it just wasn't very ethical and kind for us to be posting that on the internet, even though she knew that it was recording. We just felt that it would probably be better to keep that one private and between us, because she was opening up to us because she felt like it was a safe space, just like they do when they come into the library and they tell us all about their day. So we felt that was the best thing to do. But after that, we did learn that we just record instead of recording the whole session, we just record the part with the author as soon as they start talking, and then as soon as they stop answering questions, we stop the recording, and it seems to be working really well. Another thing the admin person does is the chat. So I'm not doing it today, which is great because I keep seeing it pop up and the numbers are rising. But when we have our book clubs, the 5 to 8 year olds don't use the chat. They might say hi and that's it, but most of them are only just learning how to write, so you don't expect them to use the chat that much. But the 9 to 12 year olds are really interesting creatures. They use the chat to talk about a lot of weird stuff. We've had discussions about depression, and we've had discussions about things like,
Catherine, we've lost you. We've lost the screen, Catherine.
Yep, I'm trying to work it out. Hold on. Oh, man. It won't let me. Okay, I'll just continue. So we've had discussions about a variety of things, really. Like some kids have compared Hitler and
we can see you. What are you doing here?
Hello, I'm just bombing random libraries. My name's Dino Yippity, and I'm an author of lots of best-selling books, Stinkosaurus, Ninor, the Little Fire Engine, and I found a little loophole to get in and bomb all the libraries. Hello there.
Oh, man. We're just talking about people like you.
Now, just be aware that this is not a shameless plug for my new book, Ninor Goes Bananas, and this is not a way of me breaking through the system and coming on and randomly making all the librarians dance. This, my friends, is a very serious book. It is called Ninor Goes Bananas, and you have no choice, because I've bombed you, but to sit there and join in with me. So you put your siren up like this, librarians. Okay, go side to side like this and go, Ninor, Ninor, I'm a little fire engine, Ninor, Ninor. And then clap your hands 2 times, go clap, clap, make a fist like this and go, I'm happy on me.
On me.
There it is right there. This, my friends, is a brand new book, and it is called Ninor Goes Bananas. And just because we're deciding to make it all crazy and bomb you, we're going to show you it backwards, okay? Right, hang on, I'll show you. Here you are. This is the first time that I've bombed a whole group of librarians, by the way. Okay, so what we're going to...
Thanks, Dino.
Yeah, my pleasure. What we're going to do, just take that off, put the song on, and I'm going to make the librarians I'm going to make the librarians all dance and sing, okay?
Oh,
So,
do we?
librarians, put your hands up. It's time for a bit of a Nina emergency. There was a dinky little fire truck waiting for calls. Well, the big newer engines were playing football. When Nina asked them, "Can I play too?" they said, "No, Nina, we're much bigger than you." Then Granny phoned up, "Can you please help me? There's been a crash at the monkey sanctuary." Nino's engine sparked with the bop, bang, and his crew clung on as he proudly sang. Librarians, put your hands up. Are you ready? Here we go. Nino, Nino, I'm a little fire engine. Nino, Nino, clap your hands. I'm happy on me. This is hilarious.
We know how to get rid of them.
A banana truck crashed through the sanctuary wall. It skidded on oil and couldn't stop at all. The wobbly trailer toppled, spilling its whole load and firing those bananas all over the road. Hold on, librarians. The driver climbed out and then let out a squeal as he fell on his bottom when he slipped on a peel. The monkeys escaped and the driver felt glum until Nino arrived with a bandage for his bum. Put your siren up, let me hear you, librarians, go! Nino, Nino, I'm a little fire engine. Nino, Nino, clap your hands. I'm happy on me. One tugged a worker's wig, two juggled Granny's bread, three danced a jig on a policeman's head. Those cheeky monkeys would not go back inside, but Nino had an idea that hadn't yet been tried. Everybody max and mish go like this. Put bananas in my tank, then push and squish and mix. The crew leapt to it using big broomsticks. Everybody stir. Nino's tank bulged as they jiggled and mashed. Then out of Nino's hose, a fruit drink splashed. Everyone go like this. Yes. Granny clapped and cheered and she yelled, "Granny!" as a trail of monkeys followed the banana smoothie. They slurped and slid their way back and through the gate, where they danced with Nino until very late. Put your siren up, you ready? 1, 2, 3, sing! Nino, Nino, I'm the little fire engine. Nino, Nino, clap your hands. I'm happy on me. Clap your hands. I'm happy on me, like a monkey, librarians. I'm happy on monkey. G'day, Sarah Jane from Hutt City Libraries and the beautiful little one sitting beside you as well. Hello to all the librarians. And I'm sorry, sometimes I get carried away. I work with 5-year-olds and I bombed your wonderful session. Okay. But I promise next time I won't do it with Stinkosaurus, okay?
Thanks, Dina. Lovely to have you here.
Big love to everyone. Stay safe in your bubbles.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Shall we go back to what we were talking about? Let's see if I can get my PowerPoint to work this time. There you go. So as I was saying, the chat can be quite interesting with 9 to 12-year-olds. We have had some Trump and Hitler comparison discussions. So yeah, we have to, as admin, we have to sort of butt into that a little bit and just remind them they're in book club and they can save those discussions for later. And if we have to, we can privately chat to them and just let them know. Another thing with the admin role is that when you're sharing your screen, I don't know if you can all do this now, but there's a little arrow on the 4 icons of people. So you can click through it and see who else you can see. And this gives us a chance that we can go through and we can just see if any kids have got questions, because we get the kids to put a thumbs up at the start if they have a question, rather than unmuting themselves. So we just do that to monitor it, and we just have to go through and have a look and see what we can find. Have you got anything you want to add to that, Pam?
Yeah, I could probably just go back and emphasise it's the admin person's job to lock the session so that we don't get any Zoom bombers in. Yeah, we sort of do that quite quickly after the session begins, don't we, Catherine?
Somebody's at my house. Yes. That's the problem with working at home.
Okay, so if we go into what our sessions look like, we'll pull them apart just a little bit more. We organise the author a week in advance, and we ensure that we have one practice session so we all know what we're doing. I open Zoom 30 minutes before, just so that then when the author arrives, we can get organised. The first time we did it, we were horrified to see that there were already a few people in there, and the kids just popped up and started chatting to us, and we had to quickly exit them and work with the author just to make sure that the author was all settled. So I think Catherine's disappeared on me. Have you, Catherine?
No, I'm here. I'm here.
So we're just up to the security tab, I think.
Yeah, it's... Oh, there we go.
There we go.
My computer seems to be freezing a little bit.
So when you host the session, you'll know, for those of you that have done it, that there's the security tab at the bottom. And it shows that you can enable the waiting room. You can tick that, which we do normally to keep the children out until we want them to arrive. Then when the author arrives, we ensure that they've got everything ready, that if they're sharing parts of their screen, that it's all working for them, they've got their audio going, because we do get glitches. We had a glitch with Nikki Slade-Robinson, was a good example when Nikki did it with us for her practice session. We kept losing her. She kept losing connectivity. And so very quickly we realised that we needed to ensure that that didn't happen on the day. So what we did with Nikki was she sent us all her slides, and we did some other preparation, which I think Catherine's going to cover later, to help us to deal with that. So then we let the kids in, we explain the format of book club, and we set the rules. We walk them through Zoom, very much like Catherine did before. Catherine, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So at the very beginning, just like we did at the start of today's presentation, we get them all to practice muting and unmuting themselves so that they know how to do it, we know that they know how to do it, and that they know that there's a mute button, because that sets the standard for the whole book club, and they're used to it. It also means that if we can say to them, especially with the older kids, we can say, blah, blah, do you mind muting yourself because we can hear the dog barking or something like that. We also check with them. A lot of them do come in with their camera off, and some turn them on, some leave them off. So we just check with them that they know that the camera's off, that they're happy for the camera to remain off. Sometimes it's their choice or their parents' choice, or sometimes they just don't have the technology to have their camera on, but we leave that option totally up to them. And sometimes they change their background if they don't want their house to be seen, and that's okay as well. But because it glitches out a little bit, we do often find ourselves sort of saying to them, can you turn your background off and maybe just turn your camera off or something, just so that it doesn't flash all the time on the screen. We ask them to rename themselves like we did at the start today, but instead of getting them to put their library, we get them to put their first name, their age, and their town. This helps the author know what age group they are going to be presenting to, especially if it's a whole bunch of 5-year-olds. The author might change their chat a little bit so that it's aiming more at the younger age group rather than a whole bunch of 8-year-olds. So it really depends, but it also helps us know what age group we've got, but also what libraries we're covering. Have we got mostly kids from Hawera, or mostly kids from Eltham or Manoa, or Patea, Waverley Way? And so it just helps us know for our own knowledge, and if there's any areas that we need to work on for our advertising. We also explain the reactions button. So like I said just before, we go through the list and we see who's got a thumbs up or who's doing an applaud. So that there is our way of getting them to, if they have a question, they can put a thumbs up, and that way we can quite visually see who has a question and who doesn't. Some of our authors like to answer questions throughout the whole session. Some authors like to wait till the very end. So it just helps us with the way we run our book clubs. And we also encourage the older kids to chat with us and ask questions in the chat, book club related chat. So we encourage them to do that, and most of the time they do. They love to, if they hear about a new book that's coming out, they love to write comments like, yay, can't wait, kind of how you guys were all commenting in the chat just before when Dino popped in. So they do that too, so it's really great. Yeah, and back to you, Pam.
Cool. We then have a bit of a chat with them when they're all settled in. We talk from our bubbles to theirs, something fun, something interesting that might be going on in their home. Like we talked about social distancing, how they're getting on with that, and the fact that my cat knows nothing about it and keeps climbing in the windows of all our neighbours to go and visit them. If it's a big group, we select individual kids to share. So we just pick them at random, like you would in book club again. We just do that when there's a large group of children because we just wouldn't get round them all. Then we let them know how the author prefers to have their questions. We've already organised that with the author, of course, but I do it again in front of the kids so that they get to hear what the author says about the asking of questions, so that if they're muted right throughout, you know, they don't feel that they're not getting heard if they're putting it in the chat. One thing I'd just like to say is that the kids are there to interact with the authors in real time. So as the host, I think it's my job to ensure that they feel seen and heard, that they feel part of the book club community, just like when they arrive at book club in the flesh. And we give them a reason to come back. We want it to be fun and exciting for them. So to do that, I have ongoing conversations with them while the event is happening. I use their names often. I cannot get over how excited they are to hear you use their name. I keep asking direct questions to them. I capitalise on what the author's saying, just a little bit of repartee, but backward and forward between the author and I, funny moments. I ask questions from what the author's said, just to keep it into a chatty format. We give the author 30 minutes, and that leaves us 15 minutes to introduce the prize question and have questions for the author where they can chat with the author at random. We unmute everybody at the end and give a big pucky round of applause. One thing that we have learnt to do is that whoever is being the host, you'll see at the bottom of the security tab, it says remove participant. That's really good if you have unruly kids or whatever, which we haven't yet, but we're always waiting to see if it happens. But one of the things about that is that at the end, nobody wants to leave. We're sitting there, the book club's finished, we're saying goodbye to everybody, trying to keep waving at them to say goodbye, and nobody wants to go. They just keep carrying on talking. So we give them a bit, and then we use that tab you saw there that says remove participant. And Catherine goes round and she clicks on them all and she removes them out of it. So we've worked out how the sessions will go. Now, I just thought I'd talk very quickly about our guests. Now, some of this won't be new to many of you, but I'll just quickly run through it. Our guests are authors, illustrators, and entertainers like Dino Yippity. Just the same people we would invite to a regular book club. Now, you'll all have different ways of making contact with these people. For me, I use Facebook and Twitter. To contact many of them. I have email addresses for many of them. I've been doing this job now for 20 years, so you build up a little bit of a portfolio of authors that you work with. I'd just like to mention here too, though, the New Zealand Book Council. If you don't work with the New Book Council very much, I would really encourage you to do so. My contact there is Catherine Carmody, and Catherine is beyond valuable. Catherine will put me in touch with authors. She helps me in every way she possibly can with our events and programming. So I know she would have no hesitation to do the same for you if you don't already use her. One of the things that Catherine has given me in the past, and I use it quite a lot, during lockdown is a list of authors who are more than happy to do digital sessions. So we started our Zoom book clubs with those because we knew that those authors felt quite comfortable already. And then we've just introduced authors that we've helped get onto the Zoom platform by doing it this way. So then once we've got them, we do the practice sessions, and I would really encourage you to do those practice sessions to help the author to present themselves the way they want to. So here's just a few examples, some pictures that we took. We take our pictures 3 different ways. We use our phones and take a photo of the screen. We use the snip and scratch on the Microsoft platform that we have, and we also use screenshot just to grab them. We wanted to grab all the different sorts. So you can see some different options here of what the guests do. We've got Yippity there. I figure the reason he's bombed us today too was because we had him this week at our book club. And the kids loved him. You can see there his green screen is up, not like the screen he had today. That's because he had a glitch. He had a new piece of software and overnight it didn't sync or something. So we dealt with that at the time. The middle top screen, we had Paul Beavers, who is actually Dean's illustrator for all his Ninor books and that. Paul actually did a drawing session with the children. So he brought up on the share screen, he brought up the whiteboard and used his graphics pen that he uses when he draws. And he did a drawing session for our 5 to 8 year olds. And you can see there they all did a Mrs. Mo's Monster. Really popular session. To the left was Nikki Slade Robinson, and she shared about the first book that she ever wrote and drew as a 4-year-old. And Catherine's going to talk about that. We've also had Stacey Gregg in the last couple of weeks, and Stacey did her session exactly like she does her school visits. So any of you that have had her, we had children from all over for her session. The middle one has my partner in the background. I can see there, Catherine, doing his at-home work. But we had Donovan Bixley, and Donovan put up shapes. He shared shapes with the kids and then showed them how they could turn them into drawings. And then on the right-hand side at the bottom, you can see Des Hunt's map. For those of you that have had Des Hunt, he's very popular again. That was another popular session with about 50 kids. And in his screen, he brought up all the books and showed the kids where they were from. David Hill was slightly different. David Hill admits that he knows nothing about technology. The most he could do was click onto our link. And so he sat and chatted to the children and they loved him, as you can imagine. So what we did was we started to create these slides for our authors so that the kids could recognise some of the books that they'd read and then identify that David was the author. It also gave them a talking point. One boy who has been a regular at our sessions had, I think he's new into the country and he hasn't known any of our authors, and he just kept saying, oh, those books look good, I'm going to read those books. So that helped with that. Here is, we don't have time probably to play this, Catherine, but here is Paul Beavis with his Mrs. Mo's Monster. He decided to read through his session, so he read the whole book and he interacted with the children. Those of you that know it, the monster munches and crunches, and Paul had all the kids doing that, a bit like Dino did with us today. So that was something else that he did in his session. So just one small thing that I want to talk about that we thought was really important was ebooks. And we were all in lockdown and we thought, God, we're getting the kids all excited about all these books and then they can't do anything with them. We thought of Logan loving David Hill's books. He loved Des Hunt's books and he kept saying, I want to read those. I want to read those. So we've been really, really strong right from the beginning of trying to work out how the kids could get these ebooks if they couldn't come into the library and get them. Fortunately for us, we work quite closely with Pukeariki, the New Plymouth Library Group, and I don't know, I think we may have Angela with us this afternoon, I'm not sure. But Pukeariki's team does all our buying of our ebooks for us, even though we're different councils. We hand over the money, which I think they quite like, but they do all the work for the buying of ebooks. So I worked quite closely with them before we started our book clubs, because I noticed that we had very few children's books from New Zealand on the ebook platforms. So together we worked with the publishers and the authors, and we've worked with Belinda, and they have been wonderful, and we have quadrupled, I would have to say, the number of children's New Zealand books that are now available as ebooks on Belinda in the last few weeks. But don't get too excited. Quadrupled still doesn't mean that there's dozens and dozens and dozens. There were only something like 2 or 3 to start with. So we have increased that, and we're continuing to. We've put Belinda in touch with a number of publishers that have said, yes, they'll get those ebooks out there. So that has really worked well for us, hasn't it, Catherine?
Yeah.
Just to let you know, we do pay our authors. We just picked a random sum, I would have to tell you. I discussed it with my manager. We came up with the sum. We pay them $150 for their 45-minute session, and they're very grateful for that, happy for that. We made sure that we asked them first if that was all right with them, and we just decided that we have a bit of a budget for author chats. We have community sponsorship that allows us to have some author visits, and also we've used our events budget because we're not holding all our events at the moment, so we're using our money to do this type of an event as well. Catherine, do you want to go on with the human factor? Do you want to cover that side of it?
Yep, sure thing. So with the human factor, it's something that I think is really important with our book clubs, and that's what makes our book clubs really special. I mean, all the other stuff does too, but I think this stuff really adds to it. So we treat our book clubs as if we were in the physical space with the children right in front of us in the same room, just like normal. We don't dance around the fact that we're in a really weird situation right now, that we're all at home. We talk to them just like normal. So we talk to them from our bubbles, we talk to them about our animals, they talk to us about everything, what they've had for lunch, what their friends said, what their mum did, you know, all that sort of stuff. They still do it as if normal. We just get on with it and have a fun book club. One of the things that we make sure we always do is we are really focused in the book club. So if we were in the physical library, we wouldn't be taking our work with us and going, oh, well, I'll just quickly finish my report, or I'll just be able to do this, because they won't notice. So we don't do it while we're on Zoom as well, because it's really tempting when you're on Zoom that you can just minimize the screen, still see the little box up the top in the corner, and get on with some work, and nobody will notice. But actually everybody notices, because they all see your eyes moving and your hands moving and you're typing and everything. So it's quite rude to the author as well. So we treat it as if it's just a normal book club and we're in the library. Something that we did to start with our book clubs was we emailed everybody. So we sent one giant bulk email to, I think it was about 400 or 500 kids, and unfortunately a lot bounced back, and that could have been a mixture of Outlook having a hissy fit because we were sending so many, and that some emails weren't correct and all that sort of stuff. And from that we had one child turn up to our book club, and that was a huge success. That was great for that one child, but it wasn't it wasn't getting the target audience that we thought it was going to get. We thought we were going to get all of the kids that were telling us when we were ringing them up to do our initial welfare check-ins and stuff like that. We thought we would get all of those kids. So we just had to brainstorm a little bit, and after a couple of weeks, I think it was, we ended up encouraging all the librarians at all the branch libraries, because we have 7 branches, so they all rung their kids. So they made that personal connection. It was a big team effort, which is really important as well to us. So they all rung their kids to let them know that there's a book club for this age group that we think you'd love, that there's a great author, that sort of stuff. And then we told them they could either go to our Facebook page to get the link, or we would send it out to them via an email. From there, we had 50 kids turn up to the next book club. it was massive. We were a little bit shocked. We were a bit like, oh my goodness, how do we do this? So it was really large, and it showed us that personal touch really mattered. People wanted to be told that we've thought of them to join our book club, because it really did make a huge difference. And we don't get 50 kids turning up every week, depending on the author, depends on how many kids we get, but we have at least, I'd say for our 9 to 12 year olds, we'd probably have at least 15 to 20 kids regularly coming in, and for our 5 to 8 year olds we have at least would you say 10, Pam?
Yeah, 10.
Yeah, 10.
I'm just conscious of the time, Catherine. We're at 3 o'clock, so if we can move on through. Yep.
Yeah. So that's how we connected with them to start with, and then when we had Des Hunt, he actually spoke about really personal things, which was great for the kids because their faces lit up, and I think that really made the session, and I think a lot of them were talking about it afterwards because I heard that from some of them. He talked about polio and how polio relates to what we're experiencing at the moment, and I think for the kids they were able to go, wow, somebody survived it, because for them this is weird, it's unusual, and they don't know what to do. Another really important thing that we like about these book clubs is that because we're such a widespread district, when we have an author touring around our libraries, they can't go to every single library. Quite often the ones that are further away get left out, not intentionally, just because of time frames and costs and all that sort of stuff. And so this is allowing every child in South Taranaki to attend a book club if they want to. They can see an author if they want to, and the author gets to be in their house because virtually they are. So it's really special, and it's really quite a neat experience overall. Have you got anything you want to add to that, Pam?
No. Cool.
Right, we'll move into prizes. Sorry, we probably will end up going over time just a fraction.
We're not too far away, so you're okay. We're just about.
Yeah, we're just about there. So our prizes, South Taranaki libraries do prizes. Not all libraries do, but we do. We're very fortunate that we can do prizes with some of the funding that we do receive from various ways. So we we get the books from the author. So the author talks about the books, and then they have a book that we're able to use as a prize. The author comes up with the question, and then the author usually signs it, does a really cool little thing. So I'm just going to show you a picture of one young girl, Emma, who won a prize from Nikki Slade Robinson. So it was really cool because Emma never comes into our libraries. She's just a child that her family love reading, love books, cherish them, you know, really, they're really special, but they don't need to come in all the time, and they're busy, so they don't. So it's really neat because Emma's come to every single book club except for the very first one. So that just shows the different platform is, you know, suiting a different type of child. But Emma actually went away after Nikki's session and made and wrote and illustrated her own book, and then sent a photo to Pam, and Pam sent it on to Nikki, and Emma actually had entered into the competition and she was lucky enough to win it. And so Nikki sent along a book, that I Am an Artist book, signed it and everything like that, but she also went above and beyond like a lot of the authors are doing, and she actually made Emma these giant hands which actually look kind of like a hug. You know, she could wrap them around her and have a hug. So it's got her name on it, decorated, and the writing that you can't really see, I think it says from one artist to another artist. So it's quite cool, and as you can see, Emma's face is lit up in the photo. She absolutely is so excited with the fact that she's got this really cool prize and she's able to cherish it forever. Another picture, this one here, I'll just let you guys read it, I won't read it out, but this is just from one of our other children that won a prize from Paul. And it's really neat because she is a library child. She comes into the library quite a lot, but she would never read these types of books. She's more of a princess pink sparkly type of book reader, like we all have. And so, you know, the fact that she has got one of these books in her home now is just really cool. And so it's a way of supporting the authors, a way of getting books, different types of books in kids' homes, and creating that excitement for the further discussion after book club. So they get excited because, you know, they might win a prize, and then they talk about it for the whole week afterwards. And,
Catherine, just here where she says her favourite thing about lockdown is coming to a library book club. I mean, how fabulous.
Exactly. It's just so special, and I feel really lucky that we're able to provide this opportunity for these kids, and make a time that could actually be really awful actually turn really positive and happy, and something to remember for them. Have you got anything else you want to add to the prizes, Pam?
No.
No? All
No.
right. So we've come to the end of the presentation. So we have, do we have some time for questions and answers?
Just before we go to questions, Catherine, I saw a question on the chat just now at the end, so I'm going from back to front, that said about were we going to continue these. We've loved the way that it's meant that we've been able to get the authors around our whole district. Normally, some of our schools would never get that. We're also going to take exactly the same format. We've already talked with our authors, and we're going to begin school visits. We've contacted our schools, and we're going to take the same concept in, and we're having classes meet us on this platform, and we're doing school visits, and we're going to take those to some of our really rural schools. We have one that's an hour up the Waitotra Valley, often is cut off 3 or 4 times over winter with flooding of the river. We're going to make sure that they get a school visit continually from all these authors over the next couple of months. So I just wanted to share that. This sort of concept too, I know some of our adult presenters of our activities are looking at these formats to work with adults and are using it in different ways. We have casual cuppas across this platform just the same way. So we're adapting it to different things. So I hope that's helped you, and yes, we'll take any questions for those of you that don't have to dash off.
So, so one of the questions in the chat room was about, how you control the chats. Where do you draw the line for the chats? That's from Jay from Hutt City Libraries.
So Jay, one of the things initially is that we look at how many children have attended the session to start with. What we found is the 5 to 8 session are just delightful. They are mesmerised by the author and tend to stay quite quiet. So we haven't been muting them. We've been leaving them, and then that's given us a little bit more of that backward and forward chatter without it being overwhelming. So we haven't had an issue. With the older sessions tend to have the larger number of participants, but again, it's dependent. If we've got about 10 or 15, it's been quite manageable, and the kids are quite good. We haven't really had much. Once we set those rules at the beginning and we say to them, you know, that don't unmute yourselves unless you have a question, they tended to do it. And the odd ones that always want to talk, we just keep muting them. So that's where Catherine in the background does her admin bit.
I also think the thing that's helped us the most is that a lot of the schools are using Zoom for like class, I don't know, class discussions and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of the kids are used to the whole staying muted, occasionally unmuting themselves to say something random and then being muted again, and following some rules. I think at the start it was a bit messier because they were all still getting used to it, and the first 2 weeks of lockdown was school holidays for them, so they weren't using it at all. But after a while they got used to it, and I think now they're pretty settled in the
we've noticed that, haven't we? We've noticed the difference in them, even the 5-year-olds. Once schools were using it,
another question, there's been a few questions about sort of technical things, but there's and a few questions about what the difference is in what's available in the free versus paid. Maybe there's some resource links that we can send out to listeners.
Sure. We can look into that and send it out to everybody. Some of the differences that we've noticed.
I think the biggest thing to take into account is the length of time. And the fact that you can have unlimited time on the paid one, even if you get the very cheapest one, which is what we got, versus the free one, you only get 40 minutes. and it cuts off.
I'll just take that last question again, because I can just see the last of the chat there, Helen. It talks about what were we talking about with Hitler and Trump. That actually was David Hill's session. David Hill did an Anzac session for us, just the Friday before Anzac weekend, and he was talking about war and nothing great, just to do with his books and that. And I can't even remember how Trump came into it, Catherine.
They were talking about leaders, world leaders.
Oh, right.
And yeah, and
Jacinda Ardern, because David, of course, has her book. That was what it was.
And so they started talking about that, and they started having a discussion about how Jacinda is doing awesome and she's amazing and stuff. And then
this was the kids' discussion on the chat, not David's.
No,
David was still doing his.
Chat. It was quite funny, but yeah, they just pretty much said, "Aren't we lucky that we don't have Hitler, Trump?" And all that sort of stuff, and it's just interesting the way that they interpret things and their opinions on stuff, but we still have to kind of keep it down.
I think people are wondering what time works best for the book clubs in your opinion.
So we start ours from 3 till 4. We've wondered whether to take it to 3:30 now that schools are back. However, all the feedback that we've had has said that the kids are finishing school quite early in the afternoon at the moment, and so 3 o'clock hasn't been an issue. Once they go back to physical school, we'll of course have to give them time to get home and get to a computer, so we might take it back. What time have you run your book clubs in the afternoons, Catherine? 3:30?
Yeah, 3:30, 3:45, sort of depends. Yeah.
So that they don't get settled at home before they come on back out to the library.
Yeah, enough time for them to get home, get changed, have some afternoon tea and leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the only other question was Dean planned?
Dean was planned, I have to tell you, except he had a school visit and he didn't come in when he should.
No.
But that's pretty much Dean. We had him at our 5 to 8 session on Monday. The kids loved him because, of course, they got to be the first people ever to have the Nino Goes Bananas song, and we just said how we were having a session today, and he said, "Oh, I am so going to Zoom bomb you." He thought that would be really cool, so we went with it. We thought, well, a nice way for you to see too just the variety of what we do in our book club, not just the authors, but we have the entertainers.
Oh, one more question: how do you choose who gets the prize?
First book club was real easy. Went to Eva.
And even the second book club was really easy because the second book club we had 2 kids and one was Eva, so we gave it to the other kid.
And then from there we've done it. We basically have done a variety of things, putting names in hats. David Hill's session was really interesting. He asked a question that Catherine and I couldn't even answer, and it was interesting because no children put in an answer to it. So I got hold of David and said to him we hadn't had any answers from his question, and he couldn't even remember the question. I mean, we had it written down, but he said, "Oh, what did I ask them?" And so I don't think it was a very good question. And now we really work hard with the author beforehand to make sure we're happy with the question. But so what I said to David was, how about if we choose one of the children that attended, and of course we've got the screenshots so we could see them, and just choose one and offer them the prize. And both David and I came up with the young boy Logan, because Logan had asked so many questions during the event. He was so excited about the books, wanted to read them, and David said, let's give him one. So we decided that was the way the prize was chosen that week. So yeah, it just varies like that.
Sorry, I was just going to say that sounds like we've answered all the questions, and I just want to say thank you so much. I see in the chat there's lots of people saying what an amazing, informative session this has been, and I wholeheartedly second, third, fourth, fifth that. So yeah, I'm going to use the little icon, applause icon, ha ha ha, and say thank you very much.
And if you have any more questions, happy for you to email either of us. Thank you for coming. I hope it has been good for you, and I hope we've shortcutted a lot of things for you. So, yeah.
Oh, and a final note is that we've recorded this session, and we'll be uploading it to our YouTube channel as soon as I can get. Actually, I've got to get Library Life out first, and then I'll be uploading it to the YouTube channel. So you'll be able to, if you came in late or had to leave early, you'll be able to catch what you missed.
Lovely. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.